and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Scott Daly.
And I'm Matt Freeman.
And any intro joke we could do here that involves this week's movie would just sound kind of trite and...
Inconceivable? That doesn't make any sense.
This week on the show, it's another one of our Council of Doof episodes. Matt, what are these things?
Once a month, those individuals that donate to us on Patreon at the Doof Warrior level or above, our Council of Doof, will get to collectively decide on a movie for the community to consider for entrance into the canon. Scott and I then, and maybe some guests, will meet, talk about the movie, and then present our case for why it should or should not be admitted.
But as always, we leave the final decision up to you, our listeners. So stick around, listen to our arguments, and then find the link in the show notes to cast your vote. I don't think you're going to have a lot of difficulty casting your vote this time around, though, because Matt, what has the council brought for us today?
This week, the council has put forth the 1987 classic film, The Princess Bride.
Classic indeed. I really enjoyed revisiting this movie, but I'm kind of nervous about this conversation because I don't know. It's The Princess Bride. Like, what can you say about The Princess Bride? We're going to try.
Yeah, we may not find anything new to say. I have some thoughts.
Sure. Yeah. So it'll be a full spoilers discussion of The Princess Bride, but this is maybe for the first time in Doofcast history, a movie in which I am confident that every single person that subscribes to us has seen. There might be one or two, right? But I'm pretty sure everyone's seen this movie.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to wrap up this episode. We're going to talk about the election, but not quite what you think. Maybe. I don't know. We're going to wrap up talking about the election because we here on the Doofcast usually talk about the things we've been watching and the entertainment we've been partaking in during the week that these episodes come out. And I think for both of us, basically what we did this week was watch news constantly, just constantly. And so that's what we're going to talk about.
Yep.
All right. It's going to be a fun episode. And if you don't want to hear about the election anymore, maybe just skip that part. But let's move on to talk about The Princess Bride.
The law of the land gave Humperdinck the right to choose his bride.
The fabric will make the prince suspect the Guildarians have abducted his love.
You never say anything about killing anyone.
I just happened to look behind us and something is there.
He's obviously seen us with the princess and must therefore die.
Pick up one of those rocks, get behind the boulder. The minute his head is in view, hit it with the rock!
I was not a sportsman.
Hey, Matt, he says, pretending like everyone doesn't already know the answer to this question. What is this movie about?
While homesick in bed, a young boy's grandfather reads him the story of a farm boy turned pirate who encounters numerous obstacles, enemies, and allies in his quest to be reunited with his true love.
There it is, The Princess Bride. This movie was written by William Goldman, based on his novel of the same name, and it was directed by Rob Reiner. You and I, for an episode of our Other Levels of the Tower, a bonus podcast, just talked about Stand By Me, and on that we mentioned that this period, the late 80s to early 90s, was Rob Reiner's like, I am a god of directing movies phase, and he just like came out with hit after hit after hit. This is arguably his best one, although I think you could make an argument for some of the other ones, but that's The Princess Bride. Matt, I guess we'll start here. How did you enjoy your revisit to this movie that I'm sure you've seen dozens and dozens of times?
You know, honestly, it is always nice and kind of valuable when we're asked, like, okay, but like actually watch this great classic with attention and watch the whole thing all the way through from beginning to end. Because, you know, I can't say that I've done that in a long time, right? It's
Sure.
one of those movies, it's a comfort movie. And comfort movies are often ones that you just kind of put on and you don't necessarily pay attention to, and maybe don't even really like watch in the sense of, you know, keeping your eyes on the screen. And so like it was, you know, I guess it's fair to say that it's better than I remember it actually. Or at least I enjoyed watching it this time, like even more than I expected, even though I already know that like I love this movie, but the way that I've always loved this movie is kind of like, yeah, it's that's a great movie, you know, but not I'm not like passionate about it. But I think watching it again this time, I was like, oh wow, like this is great. This works in so many ways. Like there's so much it's doing right, you know, and that's what I love. I love because you can dig into individual things. What did you think?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, I've seen this movie so many times, but when's the last time I sat down and like didn't have my phone in my face and like watched the movie from beginning to end? I couldn't tell you. And I mean, it's not, like you said, it's not surprising that I liked this movie as much as I did, but to me, it's surprising to really like when you start picking at it and like really, okay, why do I love this movie so much? Why does this movie work so well? And it's because it's a perfect movie. That's why. It's because it's literally a perfect movie and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And you could not say a bad thing about this movie if you wanted to. I think it's one of those rare movies in which everything in it is clicking. Like it's, you know, like it's the kind of lightning in a bottle movie where you just get a cast at the right time, a writer at the top of his game, a director at the top of his game, and every little bit of the team working together. I mean, it's a movie where you get Billy Crystal to come in and do like a 10-minute role where he's just maybe the most hilarious Billy Crystal has ever been. Like I was reading the trivia for this movie and apparently Rob Reiner could not be on set during Billy Crystal's parts because he was laughing so hard he was hurting himself. So he had to leave set during Billy Crystal's performance. And it's all these things just kind of working together. I think William Goldman writing a script based off his own story is probably the hidden strength of this movie, because one of the things that I really was paying attention to this time is every single line in this movie is a banger. Like every single one. Like the dialogue is so good in this movie. It's so funny without like trying to be funny, right? It's kind of just like effortlessly clever over and over again.
Yeah, I mean the writer. I've never read The Princess Bride, but I've heard that there's this fun like there's sort of a fun framing story for the book Princess Bride also, but it's not this, right? It's not a grandfather reading a book to his grandson. It's like some author is giving commentary on this book, The Princess Bride, that and he's like criticizing it, and it's like it so like this author loves like playing these sort of meta narrative games basically. I love that they were able to convert it into a movie script and like sort of lose none of the charm. And I think charm is the operative word here, because it's this sense of humor throughout the whole thing that's a very unique sort of like sarcastic and dark humor. Which is funny because when I'm going to be sacrilegious and say when I was a kid, I didn't really get this movie. Like I didn't really think it was that funny. I mean, at a certain age, I just thought it was scary. I was like, okay, there's giant scary rat things that are trying to eat him, and like I just thought it was scary, and it didn't really work for me that well as a kid. And I think the truth is, this is barely a kids movie. Like it's a movie kids can watch, and there's stuff there for kids to enjoy. But like the main level that I enjoyed it watching at this time was actually the deadpan humor that is just everywhere. I mean, stuff where the grandfather is just like trolling his grandson as hard as he possibly can. I didn't even get until I was older, you know, like I didn't even get that was happening. So it's one of these, you know, I keep thinking of Stand By Me again because one, Rob Reiner, two, it's around the same time period, and three, we just talked about it. But it is one of those another one of these movies where I think kids love it. Like I think kids loved Stand By Me. Kids love this movie. But yeah, I don't think it's written with them in mind. It's kind of like Ghostbusters, right? Ghostbusters is a movie came out 2 years before this, that as a kid, I was obsessed with that movie, but I didn't get any of what it was actually doing. I just liked the cool ghost busting part. Right. But like what the movie is doing comedically is brilliant. And I think you're right that this movie probably a little less it's less secretive about it. Like the humor in this is a little bit more obvious than the Ghostbusters humor is, but it no less effective. I think like so many parts of this movie are just fucking hilarious. Sure. Well, there are parts that are just clearly like, okay, this is supposed to be farce, right? But I mean, I remember as a kid, like feeling really uncomfortable with the idea that it was supposed to be funny when Vizzini takes the poison and dies because it's so dark. Like, and I was uncomfortable with that as a kid. Now I think it's absolutely hilarious.
It's so good. God, Vizzini is such a wonderful character.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think actually what, and I looked it up because I have not read The Princess Bride either, but I was curious, like, how close to the book this movie is. And Goldman did this thing where I think he basically managed to adapt it to be basically true to the entirety of the story. And it has this wonderful structure. And the really what propels you through the first part of this movie is these three hoodlum characters that are just so wonderful. And the way they interact, and like, the movie does this thing that many movies try to do and not any of them succeed, where you feel these three characters' history like from the moment you meet them. Like these people, like you just know they have history and they have camaraderie with each other, but they're like, there's this tense relationship between Vizzini and the rest of them. It's like the Fezzik Inigo like relationship is just so perfect, and it's just there immediately. Like the second they're on screen together, it's just there. And so like the entire first part of the movie is following the misadventures of these three as the Dread Pirate Roberts slowly catches up to them. And if you didn't have that, if you didn't have this kind of like, you're enjoying their silliness and camaraderie and absurdity, like the movie wouldn't work. And I mean, they're like the Three Stooges without as much of the physical comedy. Not that there's not physical comedy in this, but not as much. And it's wonderful. Yeah,
their dynamic is so great. And I don't know if I want to say this is the way it is, but I feel like there's a case to be made. You could write an essay on the topic of Inigo is the protagonist of the movie.
Sure.
The reason I say that, and I think maybe you already get where I'm going, but like Wesley is kind of this cipher. He's super competent and awesome to the extent where you don't identify with him that much. Buttercup could be called the protagonist, but she's not very active in the story.
Yeah,
you could make a case for her too. But the thing is, Inigo is the character you spend a lot of time with. You get to know him really well in the beginning, and then he's defeated, and then we take kind of an interlude following Wesley, and then we just go back to Inigo, and then he's the one who actually motivates. Okay, we have to go rescue the Man in Black. We have to save the princess.
Yeah.
And then he's the one who gets his dramatic revenge at the end. So like he gets all the great moments in the movie actually.
Yeah.
And it's just funny that never occurred to me before now.
Yeah, I mean, he has the most classic lines. He's the most memorable character. I mean, like, all the characters are great. I don't want to take anything away from any of them, but I think there is a solid argument to be made for that. Just from a very traditionalist kind of story structure, he slots into that protagonist role very well.
Yeah.
I think you're right that like Wesley, I love Wesley and Buttercup. Of course I do.
Sure.
But you're right. He's just there, and he's just really good at everything. And he has great moments as well. But like from an arcing through a story thing, that is Inigo Montoya, like, just is the badass that like grows and changes, and like he suffers the setback of losing, and we find him drunk again halfway through the movie, and then he's brought back and like remotivated, and he's just so good. And God, Mandy Patinkin is just the best. I think he said that this is his favorite role he's ever played, and I totally understand why.
Yeah.
He's wonderful.
Yeah, he disappears into this role. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But
I mean, like, and the thing that amazes me about this movie, and I think Mandy Patinkin's acting is a great example of this, is this movie can vacillate between absurdist humor and the pathos of the drama, right? Like the moment where he encounters the Six Finger Man is part of this, I think, because there's this wonderful moment where he sees him, he says his line, and the Six Fingered Man runs off, and he chases after him, and he slams the door behind him, and Inigo like is bashing into this door, screaming for Fezzik to help, and it's hilarious, right? Because like he's just like, Patinkin is going all into it, and he's like screaming, Fezzik, I'm losing him, I can't. And then Fezzik walks up and just like hits the door, and it falls immediately over, and he takes off running again. And then we go from that almost immediately to a moment where Inigo gets a dagger thrown at him, and he's lost, and he's just like, I'm sorry, father, I tried. And it's just like, you're so sad for him, and that it can vacillate between those extremes, those super extremes, like super goofy physical comedy to super dramatic, devastating pathos to triumph, to the moment where he's getting stabbed twice, and then he comes back and just keeps repeating the line over and over again, my name is Inigo Montoya, you killed my father, prepare to die. And then it's so good. It's like this movie is not just a comedy, and that's like I think a lot of modern comedies need to take a lesson from this, is that you don't have to take away the serious moments. Like I think a lot of modern comedies feel the need to be funny all the time and not just some of the times, and like you can tell a really dramatic story inside a comedy still. And I think that's what this movie does again and again and again.
I agree that this movie, I think it bears sort of explaining why this movie is a great classic, right? That should be our job here, I think, because it has this extremely unique and like, perfectly in control sense of both tone and story, because like I was just saying, it's actually a super unconventional story. You would think that the main character would obviously be Wesley. In fact, that summary that I just read to you makes it sound like Wesley is the main character, and it's like, no, not. I don't think Wesley's the main character. Like you don't really feel that much for Wesley. You're not connected to him the way you are to the other characters. It's an unusual story structure. It's the things that motivate the story are not the classic hero journey moments, right? It's a weird, unusual story. That's one of the things that stands out. And then, like you said, the other side is real heart, real effort put into developing the characters, and understanding where they're coming from, what they want, making you feel it, and then of course also being hilarious and balancing that in a fantastic way. That it really, it's funny, I never really thought through like it's a Rob Reiner movie, and that he had relatively recently made this his Spinal Tap, because it's like, oh, that makes sense to me now. Like it's this deadpan, basically almost entirely straight-faced humor. It almost makes me think of it as like British humor, but it's not. It's more like, it's its own special thing. It's just like, it's what I now think of as Christopher Guest humor. Because Christopher Guest went and made a whole bunch of movies that kind of also feel like this.
Totally.
And I do wonder how much he was involved in the creative process of The Princess Bride, because I feel like his fingerprints are here, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I don't know either. I did not see anything in my cursory research that said how much he was involved, but I think they are two of a pair, and Christopher Guest goes on to really master this kind of humor. I love Christopher Guest movies so much.
Me too.
But I mean, like, I guess one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the framing structure of the movie, because I think this is like, when people think about this movie, they mostly think about the story within the story, right? But I actually think the framing device is sneakily important to everything that's going on here. I mean, not only is it like, is Goldman taking his fun framing device from his book and finding a way to turn this into a movie. I think the framing device from the book, by the way, and again, I haven't read it, but I think it was William Goldman is writing about a man named William Goldman who is writing down the story that he was told from his grandfather or something, or someone, when he was a child, and he's trying to recapture the story that was told to him orally down on paper, and he does like make cheeky like critiques of it and stuff as it goes through. But that is a fairly important framing device for the book, and I think it was probably really important to Goldman to make a really important framing device for the movie. And look, I think there is an argument to be made here, speaking of protagonists, that the protagonist of this movie is Ben Savage.
Yeah, yeah.
Fred Savage. Fred Savage.
I love it. I love it.
I mean, he's the first person we see, right? And he goes through a journey throughout the course of this book. This is a book about him kind of learning from his grandfather to be more in touch with sides of himself that he as a little boy was like, is this a kissing book, and then by the end of it he has said, no, you can read that part if you want. And actually something I never thought about before was his grandfather comes in and says, this is a book that my grandfather read to my father and my father read to me, and now I'm going to read it to you. And this time watching it, I was like, well, wait a minute, where's his dad? And and it never says, right? Like there's nothing in this book or this movie about where Fred Savage's father is, but if his grandfather's here taking care of him when he's sick, maybe his dad is dead. Maybe like this is why the tradition is not being passed on to him through his father, because he's not there anymore. And so it's got to be through his grandfather. And I don't know. This is all me projecting, right? No. I don't know for sure. But
now that you've said that, I feel stupid for not getting that, because that feels pretty clear, actually. Now, never got it before, but now I'm like, yeah, of course. The father's not there. He's sick. There's no reference to a father. I mean, you can even dig down and just be like, look, the grandfather obviously has this kind of like sadness about him, and like a lot of love for his grandson. Which, I mean, grandfathers love their grandsons, but you sort of feel like, well, there's a reason. There's a reason here,
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the movie starts with Fred Savage being told, your grandpa's here, and he's like, right? He's playing a video game. He's sitting in bed sick, playing a video game, and he's told his grandfather's here to take care of him because he's sick. And he doesn't like that. He doesn't have a relationship with his grandfather. And yeah, maybe his grandfather, again, I'm projecting here, but his grandfather is mourning the loss of his son. His mom, both of them maybe recognize that he needs a fatherly figure in his life. And so he's there to kind of insert himself into that role and pass on a tradition that has been very important to his family. I mean, we don't know, like, it's very possible that like this is his mom's dad, right? Like, we don't know, like there's nothing textual here, but it really just jumped out at me on this watch more than ever. And maybe it's because like in the time of coronavirus, I'm thinking a lot about the mortality of my family, right? And so that's on my mind a lot. And so this really jumped out at me this time. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, maybe I've been a bit more teary than usual recently, but the last moment when the grandfather says, "As you wish," I got pretty choked up there.
That's pretty great. I mean, and that's like, that is the story, right? Like, and not to take anything away from the story within the story, which I think it's a wonderful classic love story. But the moment of the story is, you can come tomorrow and read it, Grandpa. Like, you can come back tomorrow, maybe come back tomorrow and read it to me again. And as you wish, right? That's which we've been told by the language of the movie means I love you.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a really, really powerful thing. And I think like it is not the part of this movie that gets the most attention, understandably, but I think it is the core, the heart of what this movie is and what it is doing, and why we all remember it so fondly. And I think that's why, like, I wonder if when William Goldman is putting pen to paper to write the script, if there was ever a time when he considered kind of dropping the framing device, right? Instead of doing this nifty framing device that he did in his book. And I think he realized he couldn't do the same thing, and he wanted to do something different. But if he said, should I just drop that and just tell a straight movie that exists in this world? And I think something will be lost there if he had done it that way. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, well, so just to talk, I mean, you're absolutely right that the framing device has a huge amount of the heart, right? Mm-hmm. But it also carries a huge amount of the fun in a certain way. So like,
sure.
The game that he's playing with you, where it sort of reminds me of what people have said Joss Whedon did with the Avengers, where you're going into this movie and maybe you're kind of like, okay, some kind of fairy tale movie, but the first thing you see is a video game screen playing a baseball video game, and you're like, what the hell is this? Am I in the wrong movie? You know, you can imagine a person, and then it's like, okay, the kid is skeptical of the story. I identify with the kid. I'm skeptical. This is going to be, you know, and in fact, when the story starts off, it actually sounds like, oh, this is going to be like a boring love story or something. Like, I'm not going to be into this. And the kid is like, you know, and you're like, yeah. But then as the story picks up, it sneaks up on you, and then it goes a long time without you seeing the kid. And then suddenly when, you know, the shrieking eels are going to get her, and then cut, she doesn't get eaten by the eels at this point. And you're like, oh my God, like you made me notice how into the story I was.
Right.
And you feel kind of like you got me, and I'm in now, you know, and it's like it puts a pin in that. It points out to you like, hey, you're invested in this. I want you to notice that.
That's such a good point. Because he does this thing where, oh, that's so good, where they pause the action in the middle of a climactic moment to kind of spoil it for you. And the grandpa there is talking to Fred Savage, but he's also kind of talking to you at the same time. Right. And there is a certain annoyance that you feel in that moment, because it's pausing the action. It's taking you right out of the action intentionally. But yeah, what it is doing is showing you how invested you are in this story.
Right. Because then he takes forever to get back to that point. He's like, you already read that part. Just get back to the and you're sitting there like you're right there with him. You're like, get back to where we were.
Yeah. And then he doesn't do it. I don't think he interrupts again until Wesley gets captured, right? Or till he's dead, till like Wesley dies, and that's when he interjects again and is like, well, hold on, Grandpa, he can't be dead. And like there is a lot of Fred Savage being us in this movie. I think you're absolutely right that like we are savvy, trope aware movie watchers. We know how these kind of stories work, and we know that he can't be dead. And there is a moment of disbelief in that moment where Wesley actually dies, where we're like, we can't, no, obviously not. That's ridiculous. And the movie itself voices that. It voices that doubt. And the grandfather is just enjoying it all, because it is, as you said, just evidence that the story is working on you. You only get mad at what a story is doing, I think, if part of it was working on you already.
Yeah. The Fred Savage gets mad when Buttercup, quote unquote, marries the prince, because she's actually dreaming, but he doesn't know that. Yeah. And he gets mad when Wesley dies, and he gets, who kills Prince Humperdinck? He's like,
that was so good.
I mean, that's a perfect, like you just said, trope awareness. He's like, this book is messing, like this book isn't following the tropes. This book isn't doing it right. Like, read the story right, Grandpa. And the thing is, like, it's a story that's trope aware and, subverting while still playing within the playground of these tropes.
Yeah. Man, I never thought about it in that way, but I think you're spot on there. That's a really great pull. I love that. This is why doing this show is fun, because like I never would have sit and thought about the framing device before, because it's never been the focus, right? But this whole thing kind of makes us sit there and go, okay, why did we do this? Because we're not just telling. And like, look, we talked about a movie called Stardust a few months ago, and I enjoyed that movie a lot, and so did our listeners, because they voted it into our canon. I think a Princess Bride without the framing device is just Stardust, and that's great. I think it would be a good movie. I think that this is what elevates it to a great movie.
Yeah, I think that's true. For me, definitely watching it this time, I was both enjoying the framing device more and understanding like, oh, I see why this is here. Like this, it's not just, for the sake of having a framing device. It's actually doing work on you, and it's subtly winning you over to being invested in the story. And then just like Fred Savage at the end, you're totally invested, and you're like, yeah, I kind of want to watch that again.
Yeah. I love the comparison to the Avengers and Joss Whedon, because I do think that's kind of, in some ways, kind of the modus operandi of the entire MCU. which was basically like the tone of which was formulated by the Joss Whedon-y kind of tone in that first Avengers movie, where like it's a movie that is aware of itself, but it can sneak up on you at the same time. Because I mean, I think that's what's true. Like the Avengers movies and the MCU in general is kind of famous for its like the way in which these movies like say, look, we know this is fucking ridiculous and we're kind of laughing at it as well. And a lot of people don't like that, and that's fine. I tend to enjoy that kind of humor. Like, look, we know this is a ridiculous, like what is happening right here is kind of absurd and ridiculous. But those movies also do this thing like Endgame where they suddenly turn on the pathos and you're like, oh fuck, I am literally weeping at the end of this movie that was also like, okay, we know this is silly. And like, I think that is so true to what this movie is doing as well. For 100%. That's spot on. I love that.
I think I just want to articulate what exactly people said about Joss Whedon in the Avengers, because basically the plot of the movie is you're walking into the movie maybe thinking, I don't really think this is going to work.
Yeah, there's no way you can pull this off.
You can't pull this off. This is going to be too many characters. It's going to be chaos. I'm not going to care about anything that's happening. And then you sit down, and what's happening on the screen is the characters are all in conflict, and everyone is saying this isn't working.
Yeah.
This is too many. This is too many characters. There's no way this is going to work. I give up. And then it puts it on the characters to try to make it work. And it takes your meta concerns about the movie and makes them the plot.
Yep.
And then wins you over by really earning the moment where they're all standing side by side together, and then you're like, yeah, you win, movie, and that's I mean, I thought the Avengers was good, and it wasn't until I think like later movies in the MCU where I was sort of like totally won over, but I appreciate it. I think that is, I think there is something to that. And I like this idea of, finding a clever way to address your audience's probable concerns. I don't know. I don't know how many other movies do things like this, but it'd be interesting to think of examples.
Yeah. I mean, I love that movie. I really do. And that it's a movie about how it's impossible to make an Avengers movie. Is the icing on the cake for me. Yeah. But this movie, So
right.
to kind of go back to Rob Reiner, I do want to talk about like something you said earlier, which is that like this movie really puts in the work, and that is something that I really felt watching it this time, that they really there's a lot of special effects in this movie. There's a lot of difficulty. Like, I mean, everything in the swamp is like a lot of stuff going on, especially for the 80s, like the rodents of unusual size. I mean, the very famous sword fight between Inigo and Wesley, in which both of these characters, Cary Elwes and Mandy Patinkin, did all of their own stunts, trained for months and months and months to make this sword fight possible. I think the only shot that uses a stunt double is when Wesley swings from the thing, like does like a swing. He does like a kip over the bar and like swings off, and like I think everything else is the actors, and that is the kind of attention to detail that you would not think a silly, sarcastic, dry movie like this would do. But I think that Rob Reiner recognized that it was really important to get these two actors in here, to have them put in the work, to train for months to do this sword fight and make it so it's them, especially when one of them is in a mask, and you could like even more get away with using a stunt double there if you wanted to, because he's wearing a mask. But they felt it was important to the movie to really pull off the sword fight. And I think the sword fight is so important because it is like characters that are opposed to each other meeting for the first time and realizing how much they mutually respect each other. And it's also just really fun choreography. I don't know. Like, I think that is a good microcosm of the attention to detail that suffuses this movie. Like, this is another world, right? Like, this is, neither of these two countries exist. I mean, obviously it takes place in our world because there's constant references to like people in our world, like
Australia and Socrates and whatever.
Plato, Socrates, Aristotle.
Yeah.
Morons. What a perfect line read. What a perfect line read. I don't want this entire episode to just be us quoting this movie, but I'm really tempted to just like every line. Anyway, the attention to detail really makes us feel like a world, and that these are characters that all have lived lives, that the six-figured man is like so proud of this machine that he made, this torture machine. Like everyone has a life, there's things going on. The only complaint I have in that regard is the character of Fezzik. I feel like got short shrift a little bit. Apparently in the book, like he gets a whole backstory where like he was mercilessly teased as a child and stuff, and it's Vicini who was the first person to like show him respect, which is kind of contrary to what we see in the movie where he's just mean to him the entire time.
Mhm.
But he doesn't, and I wonder if part of that is literally just like having Andre the Giant do too many lines was difficult.
Yeah, I mean, he's not the greatest actor.
Yeah.
And
I mean, there are moments where like his lines are near incomprehensible. Like that like if not for the fact that I've seen this movie dozens of times, I would just not have understood what he said.
Yeah. Well, in my case, honestly, this I have a decent sound system now, and so this is literally the first time I've understood some of the lines that he says in this movie.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
which is unfortunate, but
It's a shame because like the one part where he doesn't stop rhyming is so good.
Yeah.
And like you can only barely kind of understand what's going on there at times, except for the "you want a peanut" line, which is flawless and wonderful.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's I think that the movie does it earnestly, and so it doesn't bother you. Like it never really bothered me. It's just an objective fact that he's not the greatest actor, but I think I think actually just the fact that he is this presence compensates for it.
Yeah, I mean, he's a wrestler, right? So he's good at performing. It's just like the line reading that wasn't as solid. So like he is such an important presence in the movie. He's this warm, like kind presence. It's the classic, like he's this very, very large man who is just like the kindest, most gentlest person. And I think it is really important to the movie that we have this presence in here. I actually read that like during the shooting, Robin Wright would get really, really cold when they were shooting the outdoor scenes, and Andre the Giant would just like put her whole head in his hand because her whole head fit in his hand and kept her head warm with his hand. And so like he's not even really performing in this role very much. I mean, he is performing, but he's not like acting. This is just like the person Andre the Giant was he was just this incredibly kind person. And that's the character he's playing here.
Yeah.
I also read that like his back was hurting him so much that like he couldn't actually lift anyone. Like the scene where Robin Wright jumps into his outstretched arms, they had to lower her with cables because like he couldn't actually support her weight, which is just very sad. But
that's all unfortunate, but I mean, on the whole, he's a fantastic part of the movie. And maybe they did want to put more weight on him there in various ways, and it just didn't work out. But
I mean, like I think you're right that it almost doesn't matter that like because like his presence is felt not through dialogue but just through interaction. Like the moment where he knocks down that giant door, the moment where he's like dipping Inigo between the two buckets of water, to bring his friend back. Like it's just he like when he throws the entire like fight with Wesley where he's like talking about how this is why I'm losing because I'm so used to fighting a bunch of people. It's totally different when you fight just one person, and that's why I'm losing.
You have to use different moves when you're fighting 5 people. And
so good.
Oh my god. Yeah. I don't know. I love the creature effects, and I mean, honestly, you watch him in 2020, looks like rubber models, it looks like a costume, whatever. When I was a kid, it scared the hell out of me, and I still think it looks pretty good. Like the giant rodent things, they're so gross and like drippy and mutated looking, and just creepy, and like it's, even though it in some sense is obvious that there's a person in the suit, it doesn't really matter. It still works.
I wonder about that, and this is one of those things where like I think I'm just rewriting history because like I have not been a child in the world of constant CG animation, and so I don't know if like 8-year-old Scott would just be as terrified of CGI rat as clearly man in costume rat, but there is something tactile about these, like about using puppets and using animatronics and using guys in suits that I don't know, like I have a hard time believing that, like, even as a kid it would have affected me as much as it did if it was clearly, oh, that's clearly, like, look how smooth and quick and actual animal like that eel is. There's something almost about the fact that it's a little unnatural because it's a puppet that makes it even more disturbing, you know?
I think you're right. And also, I mean, I don't want to go on a big tangent here, but like, I feel like many people have still not figured out how to use creature effects in CGI. Like they make them, you know, too well lit, too crisp, too frame filling. And that's not what you want when it's supposed to be scary. Like the best example I can think of, or the worst example I should say, is like, you know, the effects in the movie Aliens are actually kind of bad if you really look at them.
I mean, it's like when they're in full light, it is so clearly just a dude in a suit.
Yeah.
Like, like so clearly.
But the point, I think the point is, the movie very carefully never puts them in full light. Gives you flashes and images in the darkness, which is what creates the fear. And then later you watch Alien, you know, Resurrection or whatever, and you've got these aliens crawling around, you know, in full light with the whole alien's body in view. And you're just, and it looks, you know, perfect CGI, and you're just like, oh, okay, I don't feel anything about this. This is not scary. In fact, now I'm just not scared of it anymore because there's no mystery to it. There's no, so like the idea, like the way the eels and the giant rats are treated in this movie is has a lot to do, I think, with the way the camera treats them, not just the literal like prop that's being used.
Yeah, because like a bunch of people are sitting on a set looking at this man in a suit and are like, fuck, that doesn't look too good, does it? Like we've got to light this and shoot it in a way that covers on the fact that there are times when it doesn't look too good. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I almost think like sometimes I feel like once you've gotten up to like 100 and something episodes of the podcast, you're just going to be repeating yourself incessantly. But like, I think one of our biggest mantras on the show is that limitation breeds creativity, right? And so like, if you can do anything, sometimes you just make the choices that you shouldn't. That in 1986 or 87 rather, that choice was just not available to you. I mean, it's the Jaws factor, right? The reason why Jaws is a good shark movie is because we never fucking see the shark, because the shark actually looked like shit, and seeing the shark too much would be bad. I watch newer shark movies all the time. I watch shark movies like The Meg, which was a fun movie, but it's just a big fucking shark. Is a movie like 87 Meters Down or whatever the fuck it is. It's like, oh, there's just a bunch of CGI sharks. You can see them. I mean, it's not just that limiting how often we see the monsters makes them scarier. You're right. It's how you shoot them. It's how you light them. It's these limitations that create something that maybe feels a little bit different, feels a little more tactile, feels a little more creepy, a little more otherworldly. Something that, like, it's one thing to see a shark that just kind of looks like a shark. It's another thing to see a shark that looks like nothing else in the world because it's not real. Right? Yeah. Like the rodents of unusual size are not just big rats. I feel like in a 2020 version of this movie would just make a photorealistic looking rat that was just large. Like, they're not just big rats. They're like big weird rats. They're weird looking.
They're scary mutant. They're like almost possum like, but I mean, they're just monsters. They're terrible monsters. And so like the particular shot where it's like shaking and its tail is like flapping around. Yeah. Like no animal tail would do that. Right. But it doesn't. But like that makes it creepier and weirder and more uncomfortable that it's doing.
Because like animal tails have muscles in them that allow them to move it, and not just like they shake their butt and the thing flops around because it's a thing in a suit. Right. Yeah.
And then so then another thing I was gonna just like specific like what's better, you know, fully perfect CGI of the articulated mouth of the creature biting into Wesley's shoulder and watching the teeth sink into his flesh, or kind of obscuring where the biting is happening with a lot of movement and camera angle, and then having Wesley just scream and really sell the scream.
Yeah.
Obviously, you connect with the character, and the point is you're feeling their fear. Like, you don't need to see it, you need to feel it.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. I think it's funny. We've been talking for a while about what is really a rather small part of the movie, but I think the reason I felt like talking about both the eels and the rodents is that I think as a kid, those scared the shit out of me, and they were kind of the thing that stuck with me the most, actually.
Sure. Yeah.
And I don't want to be like, well, I'm a grown up now. I don't care about that anymore. Like I feel like I kind of almost owe it to myself to be like, look, that worked really well on me a long time ago. Now it's just kind of whatever, but it's worth noting, like, hey, that whatever they were doing there, they did it right.
Sure. I mean, and one of the other things is, and I really noticed this in the sword fight scene, the sets in this movie look like sets.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think
Yeah.
like, if I just said that and stopped talking, I think a lot of people would assume, oh, you mean that as a bad thing, but I don't. What I think is remarkable about this is like the boat looks like a set. This doesn't look like a real sailboat sailing on it looks like they're on a boat set.
Right,
Yeah, they're on a soundstage. The duel, they're on a soundstage. In the castle, they're on a soundstage. These they all feel like sets, but I think what that does is it creates this unique feeling of the world that is, this is not our world. This is a fairy tale existing in a story. There's almost a performance art, like theatrical. I can't speak. You know what I mean?
Theatrical.
Theatrical.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jesus.
Right. It's like the only real thing here is the people.
Right. And I don't know. I think that improves the movie to me. It gives it this unique feel, because I mean, like, one of the things I always notice is when one of the characters is like a really big like jump and twist thing from one of the rock ledges on the other, he hits the ground, and they've put like this. It's a soundstage, and they put dust and dirt everywhere, but the point where he lands on the ground is a mat, because obviously it needs a soft mat, and they just like hid the mat by covering it with dirt. But like when he hits the ground, you can tell it's a mat. Like the whole thing dips in a really unnatural way. And I notice that every time I watch the movie since I watched it the first time, and I just don't care about any of those things. And I think I'm saying this because I think it ties into, you know, the fake looking eels and the fake looking rats and the absurdity, like even the rope that is wrapped around the rock that is hanging off the edge of the cliffs of insanity looks absurd and ridiculous. Like it's too big. It looks fake. It doesn't. That's not what rope looks like. That's not how people would actually like bind rope together in that way. Like it looks silly. And that so much of this movie is that feel, that look, that tone, that silliness. But I think it improves it. It makes it so that the super ridiculous moments, like the rats and like the he's not dead, he's just mostly dead, and that's a very different thing. And to blave, like that like the absurdity of
despair. Sorry.
Oh my god, that got the biggest laugh out of me this time when he the clearing of his throat. The pit of despair. But yeah, I don't know. I think that all enhances it so much, like the fakeness of it, and I, like, Rob Reiner knows how to shoot a movie, and I know they didn't have like a huge budget, but you got to think like with cinematography they could make it look less like a set if they wanted to. So I'm forced to conclude that was an intentional choice, that the setness of it, the theater, the live theater, the stage performance nature of a lot of these scenes was something that they were going for. And I think it works.
I think the lighting has a lot to do with it too.
The lighting in this is very, again, and these are words I normally use to say like in a negative way, but it's flat. It's very flat lighting. It's not very dynamic. Like there's not a lot of, it's very bright. There's not a lot of deep shadows.
Right. Like when they're in the fire swamp, like the trees kind of look like Dagobah, but that's the only thing. Like everything else about it, it's like, oh, this is just like a super well lit, like pleasant forest. Like, it's funny because when Wesley says like, oh, it's actually quite nice, you're like, yeah, it kind of is actually. Like, it's not that scary. It's so well lit. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you there. I mean, I think, I guess it's funny because I'm vacillating between saying like, yeah, I agree, they were probably intentionally making it feel a little thin because it's a story, right? It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, this movie cost $16 million, so it's not like this was like a $1 million movie. You know,
mm-hmm.
I mean, that especially in 1987, that's a lot of money for a film.
Yeah. I do. Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. I'm just trying to figure out whether I believe like if they could have made it look, perfect, would they have? And I don't like was this a limitations breed creativity choice, or was this a we just want to do it this way choice? And I guess I don't know. I mean, I can't really know without asking Rob Reiner.
Well, let's get him on the phone. Rob,
okay. Robbie.
This is when I wish we had a producer. Like you listen to those professional podcasts and they always have the producer that's like listening in but doesn't really talk very often.
Yeah.
I wish we could just go to our producer and be like, Jen, get Rob on the phone. Jen.
Rob. Yeah, we need Rob right now. Call him. I kind of want to talk about the Prince for a second.
Humperdinck?
Prince Humperdinck.
Yeah, let's do it.
I just as, I mean, maybe there's more to say about it, but like I there's an interesting, another sort of trope subversion thing happening there where he's this terrible, awful person. And he's also portrayed as being very competent for most of the movie.
Yeah.
He's like hunting them and he'll say stuff like, if I'm wrong, and I am never wrong. And in that moment, you kind of believe him, like he's being built up as this great foe, and he's just nothing in the end. He just surrenders. Like, and fundamentally what you realize is that he's just a complete coward, and even the merest threat is enough to make him completely fold.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is interesting because he is a really good tracker, right? The movie takes the time to display his competence when he's like observing the sword fight and like seeing everyone's feet and like reenacting it and saying like one person went this way, the other followed these people. But I think the greatest reveal is that he orchestrated this whole thing. So when he's saying like, I bet Gilder is involved with this, it's like, yeah, like it is interesting the way he is competent and then it cuts away his competence. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because he, I wonder, I don't know if this is true, but I wonder how much of his apparent insight during the tracking part isn't just like, he knows where Vizzini is going, and so he just already knows all this information, and he's not actually figuring it out by reading the sign.
Right. Like, I mean, the only line we have is Buttercup saying like he could track anything. Like I forget what simile she uses.
You track a falcon on a cloudy day. Which,
yes, there we go.
Yeah.
But he doesn't actually do any tracking. Like he's telling everyone he's doing amazing tracking, and they're all following him because he's leading them. But he does know where he's going. I mean, it's interesting because he is able to look at the footprints in the battle that happens and basically suss out what happened. And the Dread Pirate Roberts being there is not part of his plan. So that is something he wasn't expecting. But yeah, I mean, he also knows where they're going because like him finding them is part of this plan. Yeah.
I think we can let him be a competent tracker. I think the point is he's built up as being fearsome and someone you should, we're going to need to contend with Prince Humperdinck before the end of this. Just like Fred Savage expects, we're going to have a showdown. Yeah. And, we do get a showdown, but it's not a showdown that involves Prince Humperdinck. He just folds as soon as he's threatened.
Because the pain monologue is like the greatest thing ever, but also like really disturbing when you're a little kid.
Yes, it was. I mean, I distinctly remember the first time I saw this movie sort of being like, I don't know if I should be watching this. Like, I think I was at a friend's house, so it wasn't parental approved actually. I don't know if this is pretty dark. and I didn't get the jokes either. And I just kind of came away from the whole experience like scared of the monsters and
Sure.
yeah. It just works very differently on you when you're an adult.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just so you know, I happen to have IMDb open here for the episode or for the movie like I normally do, just to make sure I'm getting names right and stuff. And I just so happened to see this user review. Here's just another reminder for why you should never take IMDb user reviews seriously. But the good, acting, hilarious, comedic timing, captivating story. The bad, continuity errors, plot holes, the grandpa-grandson story sometimes getting in the way. So... So basically,
so yeah,
the opposite of everything we just said.
Well, I guess we're idiots, you know.
Yeah, I don't know what they mean. I'm not going to actually read. I'm sure he explains what he means by plot holes, and it's probably not what an actual plot hole is because nobody knows what a plot hole means. But I don't remember any like plot holes in this movie. There's not enough plot to have a plot hole.
I mean, so here's the thing, like occasionally it'll make a joke, right? Where it'll be like, you hear that screaming? It's the man in black. How do you know it's the man in black? And it's just like, you don't. There's no way that Vizzini would know, or no, that Inigo would know that the screaming that they're hearing is Wesley.
Yeah,
but he just does because the plot needs him to. And
there's also no way that his sword would magically lead him to the knot in the tree that would open the secret passage either, right?
Yes, but this is all just the movie winking at you.
Yeah,
it's not a plot hole. God, it's a comedy. Like fundamentally, it's a comedy with a lot of heart. You don't need it to. I mean, God, if that really bothers you, if that really knocks you out of the movie, then I don't know what to say to you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. I think we've talked about this movie enough, right? Unless you had anything else specifically you wanted to talk about.
No, I think I hit all the points. I was, like I said before, I was most interested in talking about the framing story and the kind of the meta aspects, and talking about the idea that the story structure is unusual, and we hit all that pretty good.
Yeah. So now it comes time for the vote, Matt. And I think this is probably the easiest time I've ever had, especially given the fact that Stardust, which is a movie, again, I quite enjoyed. I don't want to take anything away from Stardust, but this movie is better than it in every way. And so I said yes on that movie. So it's not an option. Like, how could I say no on this movie ever? So it's an easy yes from me on this movie.
Yeah, I couldn't. Like, it's funny. I'm trying to dig up some sort of devil's advocate corner of my brain to be like well, here's a reason why not, and I literally can't think of anything. So yeah,
the only thing I could think of, and I'm not going to defend this at all because I don't actually believe it, but it is a movie that I think you would see on best of lists, right? And so if we're trying to build a list that's a little bit more unique, this movie takes away from that a little bit, but that's like a weak argument that I don't actually agree with, right? That's like,
well, that's it's the council's duty to give us obscure movies, right? And this time they happen to give us a fairly mainstream popular movie that is beloved, with justification, and so it's going to get put on the list. There you go.
Yeah, it's not like our list doesn't have mainstream beloved movies on it. Like Mad Max is on it. Spider-Verse is on it. Like, our list is filled with movies that people almost universally love. So it's nothing new. And I love this movie, and I will always love this movie. Did you watch this with your kids? I guess not, huh? You're not sure if your kids are ready for this.
Oh, they've seen it.
They have. Okay.
I watched it by myself once because I wasn't sure if I would get a chance to watch it with them. And then I watched like half of it with them today before podcast.
Did they have a similar reaction to you where they just like weren't getting it?
They don't really think it's that funny. And I see why. Like,
sure.
it's this. I mean, it's like if you show kids Spinal Tap,
sure,
they're going to be like, this is boring,
Right. Yeah. It's not the right kind of. Yeah. I think that's going to be my biggest problem as a parent is that like I'm so excited to show off the movies that I love, and it's not that I'm going to be doing it too early. It's just. I guess it is that I'm going to be doing it too early because it's like the reason I love this movie is because of clever things that your brain is not developed enough to really get yet. So I think this can be my problem. I'm gonna shoot early with a lot of these movies.
Yeah, Yeah. I mean, I think I went early with some movies, but some movies I was surprised at how well they responded. Um, Even though maybe they didn't get some things, they did get other things.
Yeah.
And I think the more media, like I was talking about this with my brother on the uh, uh, bonus podcast, Freeman Bros this week.
Subscribe to get access now.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/Doof.
Patreon.com/Doof Media. The idea that, when I was a kid, when I was my kid's age, I was just watching Indiana Jones and Star Wars like almost on repeat, literally, because that was just like the VHSs we happened to have in our house. And so like my color palette of story concepts was limited. Whereas my kids, they have, Disney Plus and Netflix and Amazon and
Sure.
just new stuff all the time. Almost to the extent where it's like the opposite problem, where they haven't formed like the kind of obsessive love with anything like I had with Star Wars. Like they just don't feel that way about anything. And it's like, well, that's
Sure.
kind of interesting because they're not insane about anything.
Right.
And I'm like, I can't relate to you if you're not if you're not willing to kill over Star Wars versus Star Trek.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's going to be differences for sure with our kids' generation.
I feel like in 3 years, like we need to revisit this conversation because I'll have a kid starting to get to an age where I could maybe start showing them some stuff.
Sure. Yes.
I think you're right though, because like when I was 6 years old, I watched Ghostbusters. So Ghostbusters came on TV, and I recorded it on a VCR from TV. So it was like the ABC version or whatever. And I watched that VCR tape so much, a VHS tape so much that it broke. And I watched it so much that like the commercials between the parts of the movie I had memorized. Like I knew where I had the commercial breaks memorized, and I had the parts between, and it was around Christmas time, so they were all like Christmas related commercials. So I have all these like early 90s Christmas commercials still memorized in my head. And I think you're absolutely right that that's just like not the experience of kids these days. Like there's too many options for entertainment that like you're just not going to watch. And I know like I hear horror stories of kids wanting to watch Frozen over and over again, but I feel like that's like 4 or 5. And once you move on to like a little bit older, there's just an infinite amount of entertainment. You're never really going to sit on the same thing over and over and over and over again and get obsessed with it like that.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. And I would also say that Frozen isn't really that bad of a movie. So
no, yeah. I mean, neither is Ghostbusters. I had good taste at 6 years old, and the whole sex metaphor went totally over my head.
Absolutely, yeah. It's not until you're a few years older than that even where you're like, what are they doing?
Yeah,
and then your parents are like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, when I talked to my parents about this when I watched Ghostbusters again as a teenager and got it, my parents were like, yeah, like we were watching it with you and looking at each other like, oh shit. But you didn't get it, so we were cool with it.
Yeah. I think when you're a kid, you're just used to things going over your head, and you don't, and you're just like, whatever. I don't get that. And
also, it was the ABC version, so like all the really bad stuff was just cut out. Like the ghost BJ scene was just removed from the movie.
Interesting. So. I mean, and even that, you can't really, if you don't know what that means, then you're not going to get it. So.
Right. Yeah. The worst part was that I didn't realize until much later was that like the part where he says, yes, it is true, this man has no dick. They didn't actually call him Dickless in the ABC version. They called him like Wally Wick or something. So when we've gone totally off track here, but it's fine. But like just rewatching a movie you watched in a TV version as a kid over and over again is so fascinating because you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That wasn't in my version.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we're talking about the abstract idea of nostalgia movies, which The Princess Bride falls into. And, I definitely had a somewhat different impression, sitting down and watching it with focus than I ever really had before.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You want to know, okay, the craziest part was Ghostbusters 2. I also recorded from a television, like ABC premiere of it, except the recording got screwed up and it messed up the last 15 minutes of the movie. And so I never saw the last 15 minutes of Ghostbusters 2 until like a decade later, but I still would rewatch the movie all the time. And like I still in my memory have the exact moment which the tape craps out. It's like they're walking the Statue of Liberty down New York, and it like steps on a car, and then the tape craps out.
Oh my God, it's so anticlimactic. It's torture.
I know, but like we must have been really poor, because like, just like the idea that my parents like I was very young. I don't remember, but like that my parents would not have just gone out and bought me the VHS version of it. They're just like, oh well.
I feel like the idea of going out to buy a movie was just not even an option.
You just didn't really do it. Yeah.
Well, a lot of the time we were overseas, and so whatever movies we brought with us from America were the movies we had for the time we were going to be in that country.
Sure.
So,
Sure. Yeah. Okay. We need to stop talking about this, though. We need to move on because we've gone completely off track. I think the point is we both say yes on The Princess Bride and Ghostbusters, obviously. If we can just slip that in.
Yeah. Just add that.
Doof. All right. Hey, Matt, let's finish this thing off by talking about that little thing called the 2020 election. And I'm going to preface this once again with, if you're so sick of people talking about politics and talking about the election, feel free to just turn us off.
Yeah. Well,
I will say, like, I don't want us to sit here and talk about like politics and argue policy and argue why Donald Trump sucks and Joe Biden rules. Whatever. What I actually wanted to frame around this was the concept of watching this process the way that everyone does now, right? Where like on election night, you sit in front of CNN or MSNBC or whatever fucking program you want to watch. You boot up Twitter and doom scroll and just are constantly refreshing results, and we're getting live, like real time, down to the vote results on this thing. And everyone, like, the weird thing about this is like we all universally acknowledge that this is a terrible, unhealthy thing we do to ourselves, and yet we still do it. And it's really fascinating to me because like elections did not used to be this way. Like this is not how like citizens like participated in the election process.
Yeah.
But it is now. Like increasingly, like there's these like there's these efforts to make every swing and change into micro narratives, and it's just the worst. I think it's bad.
It is. I mean, I think this, honestly, I was going to sort of preface this by saying I don't even really want to talk about the election. I want to talk about like media.
Sure.
In a broader sense, because the election is just a phenomenon that's happening within this modern framework where, like you said, we're constantly being manipulated into thinking that whatever's happening right now is the most important goddamn thing that's ever happened.
Yeah.
And our attention is utterly required. Even though, strangely enough, we never end up being asked to do anything. And nothing ever actually like no actual consequences ever arrive, but we're still constantly asked to it's super important that you oh my God, and it is bad for people. Like it's like there are people who study this as a matter of social science, and they're like, yeah, this is super bad for people. It's the constant catastrophizing and amping each other up to believe that everything is terrible is basically the opposite of doing therapy. It's like you're investing a huge amount of your day in anti-therapy, trying to make yourself more sick and anxious and upset.
Yeah, and I want to be clear here. Like, I literally have a CNN window on my computer monitor, like right now, like checking real-time updates on this thing, just in case something happens while we're recording. Like, I am not like holding myself above this whole thing and saying I have cracked that this is bad for you and all you fools are continuing to do it. Like, I am just as guilty as this is anyone. Like, I did it all and I'm doing it as we speak. But I was thinking today, after like the fourth time I heard Wolf Blitzer like give me an election update that was actually just the numbers are still the same as was his update. Like, the numbers haven't changed.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, there was a time like 100 years ago where you just went and voted, and then like you went home and you like read a book, and then you got the newspaper the next day or like 2 days later or whatever that told you who won. And like, I'm not saying that like caring about who won is stupid. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like this idea that like that we live in this information age where we have access to this constant refreshing data. I don't like it. Like
Yeah.
there are so many ways that the information age and the internet and all this access has given us such more access to the political process in good ways. Like it's put a spotlight on terrible things, and I think it's allowed some of the most powerful people in the world to operate less in the dark behind closed doors, and given us a window into these processes and these things and these people that are making decisions that affect us all. But at the same time, this number shit, like, it's just bad. And like I just like I just tell me who won, right? Like, it's like you feel the need to know every little shift because you like the desperate, everyone wants to know who won, and any indication, large or small, that leads to who is going to win or who is going to lose is like crack. And I can't stop taking a hit. Like, I can't. And I don't like it, and I don't want it anymore, but I don't know how to stop it, you know? And I don't know if it's possible for us to go back from this. Like, I think this is just the way all elections are going to be now.
Yeah, I mean, I think us in the greater sense, we don't come back from this, but I think as individuals, we can tap out of various things. Like,
Sure.
I've never. I mean, you were talking about watching like the TV coverage. I haven't watched any TV coverage. The only thing that you could call TV is that, like, occasionally a video snippet will make its way onto my Twitter feed or whatever. But like, I'm actually just consuming election news and really all news via like Twitter, and then like maybe occasionally a message board here and there. But like, it's
Sure.
My own idiosyncratic way of approaching it. I'm not even saying like, oh, I'm doing it in a superior way, because I don't think there's anything superior about Twitter. It's just like, it's another drip feed of constant news, which quote unquote news, because it's like, it doesn't matter and you're not going to do anything about it either way. So
yeah.
So
like,
what?
There is an argument to be made that we need to be informed to make informed decisions, right? But this part of the process is, we've, for the most part, already all made the decision. This is entirely out of our hands, unless we are like actively working with any kind of like counting process, like unless we are the workers counting the ballots or whatever. Like, this process is out of our hands now, where you just got to sit here and wait. And I mean, it is like, plenty of people have written about like the sportsification of politics, right? That like, we cover political races as if they're sports competitions, and like the biggest thing in sports is the advent of statistics and data analytics, right? And we're doing the same thing with these political races, where like they've got these giant tablet touchscreens that tell them everything constantly, and they can like tabulate. And like, the big thing now is like, we've got 150,000 outstanding votes remaining, and in order to overtake Trump, Biden needs 56%, and he's getting roughly 70% per. And it's just like, oh my God, like, I understand, like, the reason I'm watching it is because it makes me feel better, right? Because I'm like, okay, I think we've got a shot. I think my guy is going to win this, and that makes me feel better. But, and the other thing is, I think these statistics are important. Like, I think having access to this data is going to be really important for like post-election analysis, and like seeing, like, understanding the country and understanding what counties went what ways and why, and how it compares to 2016 and 2012 and then 2008 and even 2018. I think all that stuff's really important, and I'm glad that we have access to it, and there are data analytics and things that can really parse that data and learn things from it. But like, those are professionals that are going to be doing that and reporting on that and writing about that. Like, why do I feel the need to do it? And why have we invented this machine that makes every human being in this country feel the need to participate in that for 1 week a year, you know?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to cast aspersions, but I think very often we're not honest with ourselves about why we're watching the news. And I think, honestly, it has a lot more to do with entertainment than people want to admit. Like,
Yeah,
like,
I think you're right.
it's the same reason why everybody tuned in to watch the latest Game of Thrones episode. Fundamentally, it's you want to be up on the gossip so that you're not out of the loop when it comes to your friends group text message or whatever. Like you need to know what the latest thing is, and in fact, you get a little bit of social cred if you're the one who brings the new dramatic scoop or the new stupid thing that so and so said. And it has nothing at all to do with like what do we need to do about this. It's almost 100% a social signaling game and a mode of keeping ourselves occupied and entertained. And I'm going to slightly backpedal on what I just said, because there are times when the news matters. Like when I learned from Twitter that there was a potentially very dangerous virus that was way more contagious than SARS had been, and that it was already spreading outside of China, I was like, okay, that's super relevant, super relevant news. What's funny is that I then proceeded to continue to be obsessed with coronavirus news for 6 months, when in reality, all I needed was that one piece of information, because that was enough to be like, okay, everything's changed, stock up on food. And things have evolved over time, but like you don't need to you don't need to be counting every pulse on your wrist to know that you're alive. Like you check in every once in a while and you'll be fine. But there is an element of like anxiousness and also wanting to be the first person who knows on your block.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the thing that I've been thinking about a lot is, with all this data out there, there's so many dumb people. Like, there's so many dumb people out there. And I'm not saying I'm a smart people, but I am on the TikTok, which, I mean, I guess that literally makes me a dumb people. I don't like make any posts, or I don't even think I have an account, but I'm like just on it and I scroll through it. And like TikTok the last 3 days has been teenagers and like 20 something people on both sides of this thing looking at election data and like being like, oh, that's really sus, man. That's really sus. And they don't understand what they're looking at all. Like this is like 20 something Trump voters looking at like breakdowns of counties and being like, there's more red than blue. Why is he losing? Because they don't understand what population density is. And like there's all these rumors going about how more people voted in Wisconsin than were registered. And when you take like 5 seconds to dig into it, you find out that the registration number was 2018, not 2020. And so it's it's just bullshit. Yeah. And of course, it doesn't help when the president of the United States is like spurring on these false claims and rumors and stuff. But like, it's just like the more access to data we have, like the less control over it we have, and then the more people that don't know how to interpret it can just take it and post something, and then that post gets shared and shared and shared and shared. Like, there was something that I participated in yesterday where I deleted it after I found out, but I read on a tweet that 27% of the mail-in ballots in Southern Florida were just lost, that the post office just couldn't find them. And I was like, holy shit, that's insane. And I did my duty to retweet that or whatever. And then I quickly found out after, cursory evidence that that's not exactly true, that the post office is like going around their normal processes to make sure the ballots are delivered faster than usual. And so that's like in their automated processes about percentages of delivered mail, it's making that stuff show up as lost when it's not really. So like, it's just all a mess, man. It's just all a mess. And yeah, as much as I like being informed and stuff, I really wish I could just like open the paper in a week and just say Joe Biden won, and being like, oh yeah, good, I'm glad.
I definitely worry about the always on everyone to everyone communication platforms, because I don't think we were meant to know what the loudest, dumbest person in the whole world is thinking right now, because and them having the ability to amplify that message and like when you think about, everyone sitting in their own homes watching the news back in the day, there was a kind of Orwellian control to that, right? Because they could tell us in a sense whatever they wanted and we would believe it we as the American people sitting there watching the TV, but actually it worked pretty well in reality. In reality, it actually worked reasonably well, and I don't think there were any like terrible. I mean, maybe we were talked into a few wars we shouldn't have been talked into. I think that probably did happen. So it's not all sunshine and roses. But the difference now is now it's no longer people sitting in their living rooms. It's metaphorically a giant mob who are all able to shout and scream and hear each other shout and scream and spread false information from person to person, literally at the speed of light, and whip each other up into a frenzy, into a violent frenzy potentially. And that makes me a bit concerned about the future, because I don't think even like the national conversation has really grappled with the idea that the world just looks different when we're this highly networked. Like we didn't really. That's sort of influenced 2016. I think it's even worse now. I don't know. I bring that up here because it's like, I mean, I've got, I spend time on Twitter even though I know I shouldn't, and what is that?
Yeah.
I haven't really even seriously tried to stop though, but I see it as a danger.
I mean, I've been on Twitter basically constantly. Like I have to do a status meeting with my work tomorrow, and I'm going to be like, well, I didn't get as far this week as I thought I was going to. Do you want me to explain why?
Right.
Because look at the TV. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't even know what the conclusion of this conversation is. Just that I was thinking about this a lot this week. That's just like how unhealthy this seems, and how the weirdest part is that everyone, like Twitter is filled with people basically making jokes about how unhealthy this is, that we're all doing this to ourselves. So it's like, I haven't slept in 3 hours. I haven't slept in 3 days. Like I am exhausted. I stress ate my entire bag of candy, which is a joke I made. And is true. But it's such an interesting thing to me. And I was just thinking a lot about it today in particular, as I had the news on mute in the background the entire day I was trying to work. I don't know. It's just, it didn't used to be this way. It just, and again, I do think that there are, like in that Social Dilemma movie, both you and I watched, like we live in a utopia of like, I can press a button and a car comes and takes me where I want to go. Like that's remarkable. That's incredible. But there's also this other darker side of it. And I just can't get over that. I've just been thinking about that so much lately.
Yeah. And we haven't really explored it. And
no,
I almost feel like we're sort of being hoodwinked into not exploring it.
Well, I wonder what the long-term, like generational effects of that kind of stuff is. Like, I don't think it's been around. I mean, I guess 20 years basically, right? But really, like in the big, like the big movement of it, it's more like a decade, right? So, what is this going to look like in 30 years,
right,
and 50 years?
And I think it's worse even in 2020 than it was in 2016. Like I think it's accelerating. That's my perception anyway. I could just be saying that because that's how it looks from where I'm sitting. But I mean, one thing that I did think during this election, I was like, what would I do if I were to just say to myself, like, this is very important. I need to take it seriously. I need to take action to make the world a better place. Some form of action, be it political, be it start some, important project that's gonna improve the world in some specific way. Okay, what would I do? What would be one of the first things that I would do? I would cut out all of this bullshit because it's a distraction.
Yeah,
you're not helping. Like you feel like you're helping when you retweet, police violence or whatever. You're not helping. You're entertaining yourself.
Yeah,
this is me talking to myself right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sick way of entertaining yourself, but what you're doing is much closer to entertaining yourself than activism. And like that to me was like, I don't know if it's going to come to anything. Maybe I'll surprise myself, and next time we podcast, I'll be like, I don't have Twitter anymore. I don't think that's going to happen, honestly. But it's a distraction, and it's not if we're honest with ourselves, it's bad for us and we shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. I agree. Just listen to podcasts. Don't listen to Twitter because we're
Yeah. Like I said, we're a centralized news source.
Yeah, you can trust.
You can trust us. We're not going to talk you into any wars.
Well.
For a while.
All right, I think that's all, right? I don't have anything else to say. It was just on my mind a lot, and obviously, like, I didn't watch anything else this week but the election, so I don't have any other things to talk about.
Ditto.
All right, so that's it. We want to know what you think, though. Let us know if you have any opinions on The Princess Bride or on election doom scrolling or whatever it is, the summary of what we just talked about for 15 minutes. I don't know. You can feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account at doofmedia. But I think the lesson here is don't be on Twitter. But we're gonna, so I don't know.
Just use it for following Doof Media exclusively. There you go.
There you go.
If you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
And you can find all of our shows over at doofmedia.com. That's where you can see Pale Reflections, our podcast by Ruben and Elliot, who are going through Wild Bow's Pale chapter by chapter. I got to catch up on that thing. I'm way behind.
Mm-hmm.
Too much election doom scrolling. Not enough reading of excellent media that I love.
Me too.
Yeah. But you can find that show and all of our shows over at doofmedia.com. And of course, you can head over to patreon.com/doofmedia. You can pledge $1 a month or whatever else you can afford to help ensure we keep growing and keep making new content. And of course, if you want to pledge at that $20 level or above, one of the perks you get at that level is getting to be part of our council that nominates these movies and sends us to them to talk about once a month. So if you want to nominate a movie, if you want to be part of that process, you can do that at that level. And of course, I forgot to say this when we finished talking about The Princess Bride, but every single one of you can help us decide whether this movie is good enough to be in the canon. We said yes. Matt and I said yes. But what do you say? Let us know. The vote will be in the show notes. It will be a vote that will send you to our Patreon page. You do not have to be a patron in order to vote in that. That voting is open to the public, so anyone can vote. You don't have to support us. But if while you're there, you wanna support us, we think you'll enjoy all the bonus stuff you can get. Right?
Yeah, lots of good bonus stuff. Now we've actually implemented basically 4 bonus podcast episodes per week from different
per month.
Per month is what I meant to say.
That's too much.
That'd be a lot. Yeah, 4 per month from each of various Doof hosts doing different shows. So
yeah,
that's a relatively recent new thing. So
yeah, I always enjoy. I was saying this to you earlier. When your episode of Freeman Bros came out, that like I don't get to listen to you talk about things that's not something I've already listened to because I was recording it with you. Yeah, so like I don't get to hear you talk about stuff just listening as an observer. And so when I listen to Freeman Bros, it's like I get to do that. It's cool. I like it. So
yeah, so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Also, please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. Each review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we're making here.
All right, folks, that is it for us this week. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Stay safe out there. Try not to watch too much cable news network, even though I'm going to do it. And we will see you back here next week, where we are finally beginning our next Deconstructing Director series on Guillermo del Toro. First up next week will be Del Toro's first movie, Cronos. So we'll see you then. Watch Cronos, and then we'll see you next week.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.